As an American, it always fascinates me when things from my country take off in other places around the world, even if they weren't as successful here in the States. Just as an example, CSI became more popular in France than it was in the US after a period of time. Or how Japan apparently really loved the folk duo Simon and Garfunkel. But after finishing my video on Mexico and King of Fighters, I was shocked to learn that Brazil has a similar relationship with the hit American fighting game franchise of Mortal Kombat. This topic was an interesting one to break down as I found myself stumbling across various sources of information, trying to piece together a larger-than-life story.
Lieutenant, it's a little steep. Yes, sir.
There were so many twists and turns along the way, but luckily members of the Brazilian FGC stepped up to help me make sense of it all. When I say this video would not have happened without their help, I mean that 100%. Through the video, they'll provide some insight so we can get the full picture. So without further ado, here is the story of Brazil and Mortal Kombat.
There can be only one.
One last thing before getting into the video. I know I say it a lot, but thanks to everyone for almost 16,000 subscribers now. It means so much to me that there's this much support for content like this. With that said, if you like what I do and want to support me to make more videos like this, please consider subscribing and leaving a like or a comment on the video. It helps way more than you might realize, and this video actually came from a comment on a past one, so who knows? Your idea could be my next topic. Alright, for real this time, into today's story. Mortal Kombat's early popularity seems to be tied to a struggle between the people of Brazil and the government that presided over them. It was a massive game of tug-of-war that's still continuing to this day. The first factor in this tug-of-war was simply the cost. The 90s were a crazy time for gamers in Brazil to begin with. When the original NES was released officially in Brazil by late 1993, many people had already been playing the console through questionable and unlicensed means. These consoles were either locally made or smuggled from overseas, and this is where we learn about the infamous Brazil costs.
Mais emoção.
Férias.
In the case of consoles, they were seen as luxury goods which led to heavy taxes and tariffs on said product. It got to the point that electronics imported from other countries would cost pretty much twice as much as they would in America.
Is this a joke? This money isn't worth the paper it's printed on.
On the contrary, every bison dollar will be worth 5 British pounds.
This led to some people joking that it would cost less to fly to America, buy the product, and bring it back to Brazil. While most joked, many really did do this and would smuggle game consoles like the NES back to Brazil from places like Taiwan. In this way, gaming itself became something of an act of rebellion against the government that was and is considered to be widely ineffective at serving its people. In a report on global competitiveness, the World Economic Forum had this to say about Brazil back in 2012. The trust in politicians remains low, as does government efficiency because of excessive government regulation and wasteful spending. The quality of transport infrastructure remains an unaddressed, long-standing challenge, and the quality of education does not seem to match the increasing need for a skilled labor force. That was my official document reading voice. Moving on. Now, this is important to Mortal Kombat specifically because the government expressly wanted people to not play Mortal Kombat as the world transitioned into the 2000s. In 1999, there was a terrible act committed in a famously affluent shopping mall in Sao Paulo, Brazil. 3 people lost their lives, 4 others were injured, and the people of Sao Paulo were heartbroken. As authorities investigated the attack, it was found that the attacker was a big fan of Duke Nukem and had a vast collection of illegally pirated software. In response, the government attempted to ban violent video games, specifically listing Duke Nukem, Carmageddon, and of course, Mortal Kombat. The most interesting thing about this ban, though, is that it literally had the opposite effect on people who were already obtaining the game through questionable means anyways.
But I played Mortal Kombat since I was a kid on Mortal Kombat 2 on my Master System 3 back at the time.
It's not like the government could enforce it since retailers selling video games were the ones in charge of importing them, and there was no regulatory body for controlling which games came in or were sold. So with that, playing Mortal Kombat more or less became a middle finger to the government that wasn't properly representing its people or seemingly even working in their best interests. This sparked a great interest in the American fighting game franchise that would only get stronger with time. Now that we understand one side of this relationship, I want to reveal that not only do Brazilians love Mortal Kombat, but Mortal Kombat loves Brazilians.
This is, I think, the third or fourth time that I've been to BGS.
Oh, BGS.
And the first time I came here, I couldn't believe how much you love Mortal Kombat. It's just amazing. And you know, the first time I came, I knew that I was gonna come back here. I would get over here once again, and that was you know, so I always love coming back here. It's such a great time.
As the years went on and online gaming became more and more prevalent, the gamers of Brazil needed an affordable way to play newer editions of games online. The most popular games were shooters, but many would play Mortal Kombat and fighting games online too. Since many couldn't afford the insanely overpriced consoles, people found a way around it. A lot of people would rent games from other stores to play for certain amounts of time, but from what I could see, the most popular way to play against others was going to something called a LAN house. A LAN house is pretty equivalent to what we would call a cyber cafe. People can pay for access to computers, internet, and even game consoles in this case. They were part of another push by the government to somewhat control internet access, and people were even made to register themselves before being allowed to go online. This push was pretty prevalent and heavy during the period of 2010 to 2011. With this push from the government, once again, Brazil's people resisted, and LAN houses unfortunately started to die since internet access only becomes easier to obtain with each passing year. The communities of these gamers remained tightly knit though, and with later Mortal Kombat games, Warner Brothers found an ingenious way to play to the strength of the Brazilian communities.
Did you ever play in LAN houses? Yeah, I actually played in LAN houses back at the time, but not on fighting games. But I think Mortal Kombat wasn't a thing in arcade stage here in Brazil. I think it's more of a King of Fighters or Street Fighters thing. There was some people that played in arcades on Mortal Kombat here, but I don't think there was tournaments held in arcade stages and stuff. I think people just playing for fun.
A few years after the push to get people on the internet, Warner Brothers Brazil took on a huge undertaking of producing a version of Mortal Kombat 10 with full Portuguese language integration. Mortal Kombat 9 had the full Portuguese as well, but for Mortal Kombat 10, this was an obvious plan to appeal to Brazilians, as they even had popular singer Pity voice Cassie Cage and help market the game. Now, the effort was definitely successful, but not for the right reasons. First off, the translation was full of weird sentences that didn't make much sense. The voice lines were clipped and memed to Netherrealm and back, including Cassie's infamous line,
Você vai me servir.
Eu acho que eu vou equalizar sua cara.
This line was supposed to be a nod to a hit song of Pity's, while acknowledging that she was voicing a character in the game, but it really just made no sense considering the delivery, and made everyone wonder how that was allowed to leave the cutting room floor. And when I say this was everywhere, I really mean that. Even academia got their hands on it. Here's a dissertation paper someone wrote breaking down this translation and the cultural impact it had on the country. So while the translation was a failure, the marketing was actually extremely successful. From this, MKX became one of Brazil's best-selling games of all time.
On behalf of the entire studio, I want to thank you for helping make Mortal Kombat X the biggest launch in franchise history.
Warner Brothers could tell from here on that they really did have a special relationship with this market, and they could work on that.
A lot of people, a lot of players, they tell me like, no, I didn't even know that competitive scene of fighting games were a thing in Brazil, and they knew that they discovered the fighting game scene, the tournaments, because of Warner Brothers here in Brazil. But here in Brazil, they put a lot of effort on making content, tournaments, events. We had, on Mortal Kombat 11, we had the Convocação event, and we managed to play the game like 2 months, 3 months before everyone played it. We live it every day. We know how much effort Warner Brothers put here in the scene in Brazil.
Then we got MK11, which actually did have a great Portuguese translation. Having a great translation and language integration is a huge boon, no pun intended, for a game overseas. It makes the community feel seen while also encouraging all sorts of people from those countries to interact with the game more naturally than if they were playing it in English.
Esperamos que vocês gostem. Muito obrigado.
Combining Mortal Kombat's status as a sort of anti-establishment symbol with Warner Brothers' attention to detail about Brazil that no other fighting games were giving, it basically becomes a no-brainer that Mortal Kombat became so beloved as time went on. MK11 was one of the best-selling fighting games of all time, and while it's somewhat unclear as to what the true numbers are, I think a large part of those sales come from Brazil. It was also after the push from Warner Brothers that we started to see international showings from Brazil as well. We've been seeing players like Conqueror 249 and Killer Shinnok, the latter of which actually placed 7th at EVO in 2022 from MK11. My biggest takeaway from this research is that the world of fighting games is huge. Players like Shinnok can show up and upset almost any bracket, but the logistics of our international events just don't support players from this part of the world.
Yeah, Brazilian community, I think Brazilians, we have to put more effort on some things. But we suffer a lot to achieve some goals. And such is fighting game scene here. I always say, like, we are 10 years away from being what United States is as a scene. Now in 2023, we are like United States scene were in 2013. So we have to struggle a lot in getting partner, getting sponsors.
Because the best players, at least on the Street Fighter scene, they have to play at a professional level as a hobby and do something else to provide to their families. Like, so it's cool, I feel closer to them, but at the same time it's kinda sad.
Countries like Brazil are some of the biggest consumers of fighting games, and they have been for decades, but there's just so much holding them back from being able to fight with the rest of the world. In the same way that Mortal Kombat is a largely casual game in the US, that rings true for Brazil as well, but the difference is that the opportunities to make it big in competing are much harder to come by. Things have gotten somewhat better though. We're actually aware of these issues more overall, and we can see their effects more clearly with the platforms people have. So I'm actually looking at this from a stance of optimism. As esports have been shown to fail at so many different turns, the FGC continues to grow and become stronger every single year. More and more players from Latin America specifically have been able to show up and make waves, prompting people like me and other players around the world to look into their scenes more. As we move and adjust into this online era where so many game circuits highlight specific regions, I think we'll see crazier and crazier stories and maybe transition into a more unified global FGC.
And Conqueror has done it! He has conquered Latin America as a whole to be your Evolution 2021 champion!
And lastly, I just want to say thanks to everyone again who made this video possible and worked with me to deliver the most genuine story I could. I met some great people from the Brazilian FGC who offered to help me with this video, and I feel like I made some cool friends from this journey as well. Thank you Killer Shinnok for giving me your time. Thank you Overmaster for helping me understand more about the Brazilian FGC, and thank you to Cryburb who actually pointed me in the direction of most of the sources I use behind the scenes. That's all I've got for now. I really hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.